I speak with anger, with grief. And what I say is a personal statement, as you will see. Philosophers and thinkers have long advised that anger clouds judgment, and we should approach any subject with calm and devoid of anger. But there are times when you're angry, and all the advice of philosophers and thinkers do not stem your anger. I speak with anguish and anger at the sight of my fellow citizens, 150 of them from Punjab, from Gujarat, and from the rest of the country, handcuffed, bound with ropes, and bundled into US military aircraft like goods, and sent to Amritsar without their being able to move for about 36 hours. And the border police play up a video in which they give the message that this is what we do to what they call aliens. I shall talk later about the fact that the United States of America was founded by aliens. Let that rest for a little while. Let me come back to that a little later. They were the original aliens, to use Trump's phrase. But I'll come back in a moment. When they came, or when they were unloaded in Amritsar, my fellow citizens, the External Affairs Minister made what could be called a clever statement, far too clever by any means. What in Delhi is called Ajeeb Aadmi hai. He made a statement which in effect said that this is how the standard operating procedure, SOP, of the US works. But he hoisted himself on his own petard, to use Shakespeare's phrase in Hamlet. That means if you look at it, in that statement itself is something that explodes his own logic. What I am referring to is that the External Affairs Ministry played up the fact that all these people who were being deported were being checked. All the papers were checked by the embassy of India. When you make that statement, you acknowledge that you have checked the papers and found that they are Indian citizens. So there you are, Indian citizens have been treated in this manner. What? Handcuffed and treated like goods. I make this painful statement with anger because I would like to believe that in this whole country, by God's grace, I am one of the few living persons who, as a boy of 10, listened to Jawaharlal Nehru's speech on the night of 14/15, the midnight, August 1947. We knew something was coming, and with a kind of sputtering radio powered by some kind of battery device, because there was no electricity, I and my grandparents and parents listened to that historic speech of Jawaharlal Nehru. And somehow or the other, for me as a boy, his voice came through. And I felt that some kind of emotion that things were changing. As I remember the words which I read and reread as I grew up. Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny. And the time has come to take our rightful place in the world. This ancient land will take its rightful place in the world. This came back to me when I saw this in the papers, that 78 years after the Tryst of Destiny speech, my fellow citizens were coming down, they're handcuffed and all bound with ropes. They are citizens who were verified by the Indian Embassy. They have the right to dignity. They have human rights. And these were being openly violated by the new barbarians. And the clever External Affairs Minister, in defense of this flagrant violation of human rights and trampling of Indian citizens' dignity, was saying something very technical. This was very, very hurtful. For I do believe that when our fellow citizens' dignity, human rights are so flagrantly trampled upon, it diminishes us all the citizens of this country. Why did they go? I could not see all the details of all those people who came, some of them covering their faces. But there was one Robin Singh, 18-year-old, from nearby Ambala, who said that he had picked up some kind of education, computer education, from an institute in Ambala. And his father had sold whatever little land for about 20 lakhs, which means it was not a big holding, 20 lakhs. And he had got hold of 30 lakhs as loans from various people. And he was sent through this route of getting to America promised by some kind of agent. It took him 6 months of going through various countries and various other hazards, all kinds of neighboring countries, Brazil, and every country, jungles and hills, to get to the American land, where he was immediately grabbed by some agency of the Border Patrol after 6 months. So they went there because they dreamt of a better life. What else can I see? An 18-year-old with some computer education, he said specifically that he had no opportunities anywhere in his own place. He said that in the papers today. So these people were the people who dreamt and wanted to escape from this situation they are in, where there is no employment for them. So to that extent, the state has got to take some responsibility. It cannot hide under this kind of legalism that they tried something illegal by the US laws. They have to take responsibility that these were people who were braving all kinds of risks in order to have a better life. This is exactly what was the motivation of those who founded the American, what we call America today. In 1620, a group of people called the Pilgrim Fathers set out in their boat Mayflower for a better life, not so much for prosperity, but for what they thought was a better Christian values and a different version of what they were experiencing in their homeland. The Pilgrim Fathers, they too were motivated by a dream, like Robinson. Please remember that they were aliens in every sense of the term, because the land to which they were going was where the Native Americans lived. It was not their land. It was not their land. That is why Robert Frost has said it in his poem, The Gift Outright, the poem, the land was ours before we were the land's. The meaning was that we took possession of the land before we ever became some kind of American republic. That came about 100 years later, many years later. The land was ours before we were the land's. So these were the original aliens, the founders of what we call the United States of America, the ancestors, the original ancestors of the Americans. So there is an irony of history that after 400 years, the chain and handcuff all these people who come to their lands seeking a better life and trampling upon the existing world order, which respects above all things human rights. This is what is going on as I see it. There is these new barbarians, the rise of a certain power which thinks that it can knock out every one of the others. Barbarians at the gate in just the same way as the sacking of Rome. At this stage, I am no one to give any prescriptions, but it seems to me obvious that when America, I say America with some kind of responsibility, because I ask myself, where are the so-called liberals, the Obamas, and people like that? No one has raised a voice against all this that is happening. They keep silent because, quite simply, they are cowards. So I say to myself, what does the world do as the new barbarians knock at the gates? History has taught us that the great work of Edward Gibbon, the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, is due to what is called immoderate greatness. And so it will be if this kind of thing goes on. There is the other world, the world of India, the world of China, the world of the Americas, Brazil, Argentina, the world of Africa, all that. How can one power or one man ride roughshod over the whole world? This question plays out in my mind. And although I do not rush to any prescriptions, there is absolutely no doubt that the lessons of history are strong and clear. And what Gibbon, in his very lyrical, eloquent style, has called the result of immoderate greatness. This is not a time for other countries to play along. It is a time to show that another world exists other than all these kinds of disruptive policies and politics. The time has come for the other world to think of it silently, moderately, but that has got to be a response to this.